This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah. Right. I'll repeat once again. So in the last two sessions, we have seen examples on function exits and what screen exits. We understood that function exit is used for implementing additional validations, and screen exit is used for plugging what additional fields in the standard transaction. We have something called as menu exit. I'll discuss that menu exit after a couple of sessions or later on when we discuss in BADIs. So today what we'll do is we'll start with the BADIs and we'll try to understand the difference between BADIs and what a customer exits. Okay. So BADIs stands for what a business add-in. Okay, BADIs stands for business add-in. So if you see the comparison between BADIs and customer exits, related to customer exits, we use the T codes SMOD and CMOD. SMOD we use to identify the components of the customer exit and to read the documentation of the customer exit. And CMOD we use for implementing the customer exit. Similarly, in BADIs, we use SC18 and SC19. SC18 is similar to what SMOD. SC19 is similar to what CMOD. SC19 contains BADI definition. SC19 SC18 contains BADI definition. SC19 contains what BADI implementations. So associated with BADIs, we have definitions and implementations. BADI definition and BADI implementation. Okay, BADIs also can be implemented for providing additional validations, for plugging additional menu items, and for plugging additional fields, same as what customer exit. But customer exit follows procedure oriented approach, BADIs follows object oriented approach. If you take customer exit, when we are implementing the function exit, we are writing that business logic as part of a include program, as part of a custom include, which is available as part of standard function module. Function module comes under what? Procedure oriented. Whereas the logic related to the BADIs, we will implement as part of methods. Method is a part of a class, that is object oriented. Another difference is customer exit always supports single implementation, whereas BADIs can support BADIs can support multiple active implementations. So what is the meaning of multiple active implementations? We'll understand. And there are many other features in BADIs which are not supported in what customer exits. Okay, BADIs support something called as filters. Based on that filters, we can control the execution of the active implementation. So to summarize these things, see here, if you take this customer exits, what are the components of the customer exits? We have function exits, screen exits, and menu exits. Menu exits we have not yet discussed. We'll see it after a few days along with the BADIs. So what are the T codes we use in customer exits? SMOD and what? CMOD. Customer exit supports what? Single implementation. What is the meaning of that? A customer exit implemented as part of a project cannot be assigned in what? Another project. Now, if you take BADIs, BADIs stands for business add-ins. They are implemented using object-oriented approach. BADIs can be used for implementing what? Additional validations, just like function exits, plugging additional menu items, just like menu exits, plugging additional fields, like what? Screen exits. And what are the T codes here? SC18 and what? SC19. SC18 deals with the definition. SC19 deals with implementation. A BADI can be single or multiple implementations. Single implementation means we can have only one active implementation at any point of time. Multiple implementations means we can have any number of active implementation. So we may not understand this point at this point. We'll see that later on. Okay. And yeah. So if you take the components of a customer exit, we understood that a customer exit can contain function exits or menu exits or screen exits or combination of what? Function, menu, and what? Screen exits. Similarly, associated with BADI definition, we have some components like BADI interface. BADI interface. What is the naming convention here? If underscore ex underscore. BADI interface always starts with if underscore ex underscore. And that interface contains methods. One or more BADI interface methods. The functionality of interface methods is similar to function exits in what customer exits. Yesterday, we have seen one screen exit. Okay, in that customer exit only, we have one screen exit and we had some three function exits. We implemented the PBO function exit and PAI function exit. Similarly, a BADI interface can contain one or more methods. Okay, this method you can compare similar to what function exit in case of customer exits. And we need, what are the other components we need to identify? Whether the BADI is single use or what? Multiple use. Single use means it can have only one active implementation. Multiple use means it can have any number of active implementations. Similarly, we need to check whether BADI is filter dependent or filter independent. So what is filter? We don't know at this stage. We'll understand after 3-4 days. Okay, right. So these are the components of our BADI definition. So let me directly get into what a scenario. Same example I'll take earlier what I did for XD01. What is that validation we implemented in XD01? If the customer is an Indian customer, the industry should be what? Mandatory. Okay, so first, actually I switched off that customer exit. So if you go to what? CMOD, what is the project we implemented? ZPRJ1, I have deactivated that. Okay, I have deactivated. So what is the meaning of deactivation? This implementation will not be executed. When the customer exit is triggered, since there is no active implementation, our logic will not be executed. So what I'll do is quickly, I'll run the T code XD01. Right, so for practice purpose, as usual, I'll choose what? Account group R3 to CRM. Continue. I'll provide some title. Okay, some name I'll give. I'll give the country key as something India. Done. In the control data, I will not give any what industry key. Okay, I'll not give any industry key. Done. Understood? I'm not giving any industry key in the control data. I'll save it. What happened here? It is allowing me to create the customer. Even if it is an Indian customer, industry key is what? Not mandatory. Understood? Our customer exit is deactivated. That's why it is not getting triggered. So I want to implement the same validation using what? BADI. Right? So earlier what you have done? We have done it through customer exit. So what we have done for that? We identified whether this transaction XD01 contains any what? Contains any customer exits or not. We have seen the process. We collected the main program of the transaction. For that main program, we have collected the package. Then we went to SC84 and under enhancement section, under customer exits, we gave the package name. And when we search for that customer exit, it was showing only one customer exit, SAP MF02D. Similarly, I want to implement the same validation. What is that? For Indian customers, industry should be what? Mandatory. So let us see whether that BADI, whether this transaction contains any BADIs. It is not compulsory that every transaction should contain customer exits or BADIs. Some transactions might contain only customer exits. Some transaction might contain only BADIs. Some transaction may contain both. Some transaction may not contain anything. Understood? So SAP may or may not provide the plugins. Version to version, you will have different plugins in each transaction. Plugins is nothing but what? Enhancements here. Done. So what is the agenda now? In a given transaction, I want to identify the baddies. So same process will follow. For the transaction, you have to identify the program and the package of the program. So I'll go to SC 93. What is the transaction code? XD01 display. What is the main program? SAP MF02D. If I double click on that, right, I'll choose go to attributes. What is the package name here? VS. Once I got the package name, that is VS, I'll go to what? SC84. There are other techniques also. We'll discuss this at later point of time. Okay. So I'll go to SC84, Business Repository Information System. In this SC84, under enhancement section, under baddies, that is business add-ins, we have two sections, definitions and what? Implementations. Double click on the definitions. Here you provide the package name. What is the package we collected? VS. Package name is VS. Let's execute this. Acha. We have something called as kernel baddies and classic baddies. Again, we will not understand this at this point. We may understand that after 1 week. So leave it. Whenever required, we'll discuss that. Right. So what is the package name here? VS. Execute. Done. So it is showing you what? Multiple baddie definitions. So version to version, the baddie definitions might be different, will be different. Okay. So in this version, ECC 6.0, they are the list of baddies it is showing in the transaction what? XD01. Right. So I need to collect the baddie names and check which is relevant for our requirement. Yeah. Any questions up to this point? Okay. So stop me if you have any questions. Right. So where we are? So we have listed the list of baddies in the transaction what? XD01. So as usual, we need to check the documentation of each and every baddie. We need to identify the components of the baddie to analyze which is suited for our requirement. Okay. So if I take the first one, what is that? BADI underscore ERP underscore mass underscore KNR underscore EXT. Okay. They didn't give any description here. So let me go to SC18. I'll go to SC18 and I'll try to check what are the components in that particular BADI. Let us see whether any documentation available for that. What is that BADI name? BADI underscore ERP underscore mass underscore KN1 underscore EXT. So I'll go to SC18. If you go to SC18, we have two radio buttons, enhancement spot and a baddie name. Again, what is enhancement spot? We don't know at this stage. I'll select what? Baddie name. Baddie name. So what is the baddie name here? Baddie underscore ERP underscore mass underscore KN1. Baddie underscore ERP underscore mass underscore KN1 underscore ext. Right. This is the name of the baddie. Right. Let me try to display this. Yeah, you can see here. Observe this carefully. This is the baddie name. Right. This is the baddie name. I selected the radio button baddie name. I clicked on display. When I clicked on display, So you can see inside it is showing you the BADI definition. BADI definition, BADI name both are same. What is that? BADI underscore ERP underscore mass underscore KN1 underscore EXT. It is shown under enhancement spot. It is shown under enhancement spot. What is the enhancement spot name here? ES underscore VS underscore ERP underscore mass underscore KN1. So what is this enhancement spot means? If you take our normal ABAP, we have something called a subroutine pool. What is a subroutine pool? A subroutine pool is a collection of what? External subroutines. And if you take function models is stored inside a function group. Na? So I can say a function group is a container of what? Function models. One function group can hold any number of function models. Not only function models, it can contain other objects, include programs, PBO models, PA models, all those things. But function group is a container of what? Function modules. Similarly, enhancement spot is a container of what? BADI definitions. At this point, understand that enhancement spot is an object which is a container of what? BADI definitions. Am I clear? Enhancement spot is a container of BADI definitions. Before 6.0 version, BADI definitions and implementations exist independently. Okay, I repeat, before 6.0 version in 4.6c, 4.7, all the old versions, BADI definitions and implementations exist independently. From 6.0, BADI definitions are stored inside enhancement spot and BADI implementations are stored inside enhancement implementations. I repeat this. Before 6.0 version, BADI definitions exist independently and BADI implementations exist independently. From 6.0, BADI definitions are stored inside enhancement spot and BADI implementations are stored inside enhancement implementation. So for today, what you have to understand is enhancement spot is a container of what? BADI definitions. Enhancement implementation is a container of what? BADI implementations. After 3-4 days, I'll change the definition. Okay, actually enhancement spot is a container of BADI definitions, function group enhancements, source code enhancements. So those things we don't know at this stage. So for next few days, understand that enhancement spot is a container of what? BADI definitions. Enhancement implementation is a container of what? BADI implementations. Enhancement implementation is a container of BADI implementation. So what I'm trying to convey is I collected the BADI definitions in my package related to the transaction XD01. It has listed many BADI definitions. I collected one of the BADI definition. I came to SC18 and I selected the radio button BADI name. I gave that. When I try to display, it is not showing it independently. It is embedded inside what? Enhancement spot. One enhancement spot can contain any number of BADI definitions. But in this case, this enhancement spot contains only one BADI definition. Am I clear? Right. So enhancement spot is a container of one or more BADI definitions. Going forward, we will take one enhancement spot which may contain n number of what? BADI definitions. Right. So this is my BADI definition. So from the BADI definition, what are the things we have to collect is what is the BADI interface? What is the naming convention for the BADI interface? If underscore ex underscore na. So if you see here in SC18, observe this carefully. What is the naming convention here? If underscore ex underscore so on. So this is your BADI interface name. What is an interface means? Interface is a collection of what? Abstract methods. Interface is a collection of abstract methods. What do you mean by abstract method is? An abstract method is a method which is just declared but not implemented. There is no logic inside that particular method. Okay, so this interface might contain many methods. If I double click on this interface, I repeat, if I double click on this interface, it takes a control to class builder SC24, where I can see the list of methods. If I double click, it has taken the control to class builder tool SC24. Just like we have function builder, it has taken the control to class builder SC24. In this interface, we have some 8 to 10 methods. Okay, each method you assume like a function exit. We use function exit for implementing additional validation. So here also we have many methods. No one will tell us to implement this method or that method. We need to check the description. We need to check the signature. We need to check the parameters. Okay, we need to read the documentation on the application toolbar. We have interface documentation. If available, I can read it. I don't have the documentation for this interface. Okay, so we have to go by the description, we have to go by the signature and analyze which is the method which is suited for our requirement. Am I clear? So this is about the BADI interface. It contains what? N number of methods. N number of methods. Okay, I'll put the cursor in the method change underscore data. Let me check any documentation available. I'll choose go to documentation to component. When I click on the interface documentation, it is not showing anything. So let me check whether any documentation available for individual methods. I'll put the cursor here. I'll choose go to documentation to components. No, not available. So I have to go by the description. I have to go by the parameters. Okay, I'll go back. Right. So what are the things I need to identify from the BADI definition? You'll have an interface. In that interface, you'll have n number of methods. We need to identify which is a method we need to implement. How do we decide which method you have to implement? Means we have to see the description of the method. We have to check the parameters of the method. We have to read the documentation if available. Even after doing all these things, we may not understand which is appropriate for our requirement. Okay, so at that time, what you have to do is whichever method you feel is closely matching your requirement based on the parameters, based on the description, try to provide some dummy implementations in each of those methods. Dummy implementation means not the actual logic, just provide some hello message, welcome message, so on so. Provide the dummy implementations as part of those one or more methods, activate the implementation and check which method is getting called at which stage. Okay, after implementing the customer exit, we have tested the transaction. So at the appropriate place, appropriate function exit got triggered. If you remember, day before yesterday, in XD01 transaction, that customer, that function exit, which is part of a customer exit, got triggered when we click on the save button, right? In the yesterday's case, in MP01 transaction, those function exits, PBO function exit or PA function exit, are getting triggered when I select an entry in the report and when I click on the details button, that PBO function exit is getting got triggered. So at an appropriate place, appropriate function exit gets triggered. Here also, there might be multiple methods. You are unable to decide which matches your requirement, even by reading the description, by analyzing the signature, by reading the documentation. We may not be able to predict which is the appropriate method for a requirement. So what you have to do is, whichever method you feel closely matches our requirements based on the parameters, based on the documentation, try to provide dummy implementations in each of those methods and check which method is getting called at which stage, check which method is carrying which parameters. Based on that, you'll get a clear idea which is appropriate method. Am I clear? So what I'm trying to convey is, if I double click on this interface, I have many methods. I don't have documentation. By reading the description 100 times also, I didn't got anything, right? So what you have to do, you have to double click on each method and provide some dummy implementation. Okay, activate your implementation, run the T code. Try to perform different actions in the transaction. So if you want to perform the actions in the transaction, I should know how to use the transaction. So I need to take the help of the functional consultant to understand how to use that particular T code. So based on that, you'll get an idea which is the appropriate method for your requirement. If you feel that there is no appropriate method, so what is the meaning? There is no suitable plugin for that particular requirement. Hope this is clear. This analysis is very important. Any questions so far? Okay. So from the BADI definition, we understood that a BADI definition will contain an interface. That interface will contain one or more methods. Each method is similar to what? A function exit. What is the other information I need to collect? Information whether BADI is single use or multiple use. So here only you can see there is a checkbox selected called as multiple use. There is a checkbox selected called as multiple use. So what is the meaning? It can have any number of active implementations. We have seen one limitation of customer exit. What is that? Customer exit always supports single implementation. If a customer exit is already implemented in a project, I cannot implement in another project. At any point of time, it can have only one active implementation. But whereas if a BADI is multiple use BADI, it can have any number of active implementations. Anyhow, we'll do the implementation going forward. Done. What is the other information I need to collect? Whether BADI is filter dependent or filter independent. At this stage, we don't know much about the filter. Okay, we don't know much about the filter, so leave it. Okay, so if I expand this, it doesn't have any filter here, leave it. Anyway, we'll talk about the filter later on. There are other radio buttons and checkboxes. Whichever is relevant, we'll discuss that going forward. Right, so what we understood is this particular BADI definition is embedded inside what? Enhancement spot. This is enhancement spot which contains this BADI definition. This is the interface. This interface has got many methods. What is our requirement? Our requirement is what? If the customer is an Indian customer and if the industry's key is not captured, I should not allow to save the customer. So by looking at this description, I didn't understood what is the meaning of this. BADI definition for application exists. Understood? So I'm not clear whether this is suitable BADI or not. Let me go to each and every method. If I go to this method, change underscore data, what is this here? BADI method for application exit so and so. They give some information here again which I'm unable to understand. Okay. So what I'll do further now, I don't have documentation also. I know the fields of that validations. No? What is that? One is country key, another is what? Industry key. Understood? Functional consultant will tell you what are those fields. Otherwise, you can press F1 and check what is the technical field name. In the transaction, and I'll show you that. In the transaction, I can press F1 and you'll get a pop-up window. There you can go to technical information, identify the field name, and anyhow the functional console will tell you to which table this particular field belongs. So we know that those two validation fields are part of which table? K11 table. Na? So let me put the cursor here. I'll go to parameters. You can see here there are some parameters here. No parameter is talking about the K11. No parameter is talking about the what? K11. Understood? So I can see there is a parameter ct underscore kn1 changing type mass kn1 underscore t general data and customer master. I'll double click on this. This sounds equivalent, so I'll just double click on this. Mass kn1 underscore t is a table type, okay, which is associated with the structure what? Kn1. Kn1 is our table now which contains all these fields. So this is a parameter which is referring to the fields of what? Kn1. But how do I use this? This is what type here? It's a table type. Table type is nothing but an internal table. It is an internal table. But what we have to do, we have to check the individual fields. This is for mass here. You can see these are all what? Mass records. All are what? Internal tables only. But what is our requirement? When I'm trying to create a single record, at that time I need to do the checks. So understood, whereas this is an internal table. In our case, in XZ01 at any point of time, I can create only one customer. Na? So I need to check for what? Individual fields. So I don't have any parameter which is carrying those individual fields, right? So this is not relevant. Like that, we need to analyze each and every method. There is a method called as check underscore data. Okay, if I go to parameters of this, yeah, here also you can see we have something else. I don't have anything related to what? K-none. So they are not relevant. And understood, no one will tell us use this method, that method. We have to do the analysis. Sometimes, even after looking at the parameters also, we may not understand which is relevant. So we need to provide the dummy implementation check which method is getting called at which place. Right. So this is your BADI definition, which contains what some methods. Let me take another BADI. So this is not appropriate for my requirement. Okay. What is the next one now? What is the next BADI we identified? Yeah. Customer underscore add underscore data. This is another BADI definition. Let me go to that. So again in SC18 only, I'll give that customer underscore add underscore data. Customer underscore add underscore data is a BADI definition. If I display, ah, observe this carefully. It is observe here. Here also you can see what is saying here. BADI migrates to what? Enhancement what? So this analysis is important, very important. See here. In the previous case, I gave this BADI. I gave this BADI. If I display directly, it is showing you that it is available inside what? Enhancement spot. It is available in the enhancement spot. Now, in case of the second BADI, what is that? Customer underscore add underscore data. Okay, this is the BADI definition. You can see here in the properties tab only. BADI migrates to enhancement spot what? Customer add data. So migrates to enhancement spot. What is the meaning of this sentence? In the older version, this BADI is available independently. In the older version, this BADI is available independently. Now from this version, it is embedded inside what? Enhancement spot, it seems. What is the enhancement spot name here? Customer data. The BADI name is also what? Same. So I'll do one thing. Okay, I'm able to see the enhancement spot here. So I'll just go back. I'll choose what? Enhancement spot. I'll give the enhancement spot name here. What is that? Customer data. If I display, yeah, you can see here. Inside this enhancement spot, it is showing you that particular BADI definition. But I am calling this as the old BADI. I am calling this as the classic BADI. Understood? What do you mean by classic BADI? The BADI which exists in the previous versions. It is called as what? Classic BADI. Understood? Classic BADI means the old BADIs are called as what? Classic BADIs. If they are stored inside the enhancement spot, they are called as what? Kernel BADIs. Understood? So from 6.0, the same BADI I called as kernel BADI. In the older version, we called it as what? Classic BADI. If you take this one, what is the other BADI we have seen initially? This one. Okay, here I didn't got any information like BADI migrates to enhancement spot. So what is the meaning? This BADI is not available in the previous versions. They have provided this BADI directly from what? 6.0 version. So it is called as what? Kernel BADI. From 6.0, all the BADI definitions are stored inside what? Enhancement spot. So more about kernel and classic we'll discuss later on. Don't get confused at this stage. Let me take this BADI. What is that? Customer add data, or I can open it through what? Enhancement spot. I am opening through enhancement spot. If I display, yeah, see here. This is enhancement spot which contains what? Only one BADI definition here also. Right. What is the interface here? If underscore ex. The BADI interface always starts with what? If underscore ex. And here also you can see here, what is this? Multiple use. So it supports what? Multiple implementation. Achha, you can see migrated from what? Classic BADI. So what is the meaning of classic BADI? The old BADIs, the BADIs which exist in the previous versions, they are called as what? Classic BADI. Once they are stored in enhancement spot, we call them as what? Kernel BADIs. Okay. So it is migrated from what? Classic BADI. It's done. It is also what? Multiple use. It is also multiple use. Done. If I expand this, yeah, nothing is there. Fine. So again, this interface might contain many methods. No? Let me double click on this interface. It contains what? Many methods. Let me check any documentation available. If I click on interface documentation, no documentation available. Okay. I'll put the cursor in each method. Let me check any documentation available. I'll put the cursor in the first method, choose the menu, go to documentation, two component. Yeah, they gave some documentation. We need to understand, analyze this particular documentation, then we'll get an idea whether this is suitable for our requirement or not. Am I clear? So you have to read the documentation. Like this, they might have provided the documentation for each and every method. Suppose I'll put the cursor in check all data. Check all data. I'll choose go to documentation, two components. Yeah, they gave some documentation related to that method. Check all data. What is the short text here? Final checks. What is the functionality? With this method, you can carry out own consistency checks. It will run after the user has saved the changes. The method has the following import parameters. So our validation is based on two fields. No? What are they? Country and what? Land one. So you can see here, there is a method called as check all data. What is the description here? Final checks. Let me check the signature of this. I'll go to parameters. It has got many parameters. If you see one of the parameter, s underscore kn1, it is carrying the fields of what? Kn1. So if I double click on this, what are our validation fields? One is land one, and there is BRSCH industry key. So this is the parameter, importing parameter, which is carrying our validation field. So this might be appropriate for my requirement. And what is the description? They are clearly saying final checks. When you are trying to save the customer, this method might be called. There is another method which is talking about save. What is that? Save underscore data. What is the description? Save data outside the standard. I'll put the cursor here. Let me check any documentation available. Two components. Okay. With this method, you can save your own data. It is called after the function models that save the database tables. So by looking at the documentation, it is understood that this method is called after saving the changes in the database table, right? So even after reading the description, you may not understand. Let me check the signature of this. If I go to parameters, we have two parameters. You can see one is of type AKTYP, it seems, another is of type Kunnar. Okay, but our validation fields are what? Land one and BRSCH. Do we have any parameter which is carrying those? Do you have any parameter which is carrying those fields? No. So again, this is not appropriate for our requirement. Am I clear? Like this, I need to check the documentation of each and every method, analyze the signature, and understand, come to a conclusion which is appropriate for our requirement. So by analyzing here, I understood that this is a method which is appropriate. What is that method? Check all data, which is part of this interface. This interface is part of this particular BADI definition. And this BADI is what? Multiple use. Multiple use means it can have any number of what? Implementations. Right? So now what I'll do is, let us try to implement this particular BADI. In this BADI, what is the method we have decided to implement? Yes, check all data. Yeah, any queries up to this point? No questions? Fine. So let us try to implement this BADI. Right. So if this is not suitable, again I have to check the components of this other BADIs also. So I feel this is appropriate. Let me try to implement it. So where do we implement this? SE19. So try to understand don't try to remember the navigations. If you try to remember the navigations, we cannot understand the concept. Spend time on the system, you'll automatically get the navigations. Okay. Don't try to understand which button we have to click, which radio button you have to select. Okay. So I'll go to SC19. I'll go to SC19. Yeah. So here we have two sections. One is this SC19 is similar to what CMOD. Na? In CMOD, what we will do? We'll give the project name. We'll create the project. Inside the project, we'll assign the enhancement. After assigning the enhancement, we'll go to components and we'll implement the appropriate function exit. Here also, we have two blocks: edit implementation block and create implementation block. As the name itself suggests, edit implementation block means this is for modifying the existing implementation. But we are interested in what? Creating the fresh implementation. So see here, we have two radio buttons here: new BADI and classic BADI. Are we clear? So what are the BADI we have seen so far? Customer and data. It is a classic BADI. Na? If you are trying to implement it independently, it is a classic BADI, right? And we also understood that it got migrated to the enhancement spot. What is the enhancement spot name? Same name, na? Customer underscore add underscore data. So what I'll do, always go for new BADI. New BADI means kernel BADI. Performance wise, kernel BADIs are faster than what? Classic BADI. Suppose I will not go for new BADI. I'll go for classic BADI here. Let me check whether it is possible or not. Classic BADI. What is the BADI name? Yes, customer underscore add underscore what? Data. Customer underscore add underscore data is my BADI definition name. Nothing but BADI name. I'll click on what? Create implementation. Is it allowing? Yes, it is allowing. Observe this carefully. It is allowing. So what is the why it is allowing? Because in the older versions, it is existing independently, right? When it came to 6.0, it got migrated. So in 6.0, we have the option to implement it independently, or we have the option to implement it as part of what? Enhancement spot. Okay, right? As of now, I'm trying to implement it independently. I'm able to do because it is a classic BADI. I'll do one thing. I'll go back to the first BADI. What is the first BADI? What is the first BADI here? BADI underscore ERP underscore mass underscore KN1 underscore EXT. Okay, let me try to implement it independently. BADI underscore what? ERP underscore mass underscore KN1 underscore EXT. Yeah? See here, the space itself is not sufficient here. Understood? So it is not a classic BADI. It is directly introduced in what? 6.0 version. It is available inside what? Enhancement spot. So this BADI I am unable to implement it independently. But this BADI, it is a classic BADI which is also available in the previous versions. So I can implement it independently or I can implement it as part of what? Enhancement spot. First, what I'll do, I'll implement it independently. Understood? So this is the BADI name. Try to understand the concept here. Customer underscore add underscore data. I'll click on what? Create implementation. Yeah, it is asking what? BADI implementation name. This is nothing but BADI implementation name. So what I'll do here, I'll give the name of, since it is my own implementation, let us start with the Z. What shall I give? I'll give the name as something Z BADI implementation 1. Okay, so the name of the implementation is Z BADI implementation 1. You can give any name. Done. So let's see what happens. BADI implementation 1. Continue. Yeah, you can see here. BADI implementation name is Z BADI IMPL1 implementation short text. I'll say implementation 1. Implementation 1 else. That's all done. Okay. So in the properties tab, you can see here it is a multiple use BADI. The filter dependent checkbox is not selected. So it means that it is filter independent. What is filter? We don't know, leave it. And what is the information? It is migrated to the enhancement spot. Fine. Right. Now I need to implement one of the method. I'll go to interface. What is the runtime behavior here? Implementation will not be called because what is the status of this implementation? Inactive. If it is active only, it will be called. As of now, it is inactive. That's why it is saying it will not be called. I'll go to interface. Observe this carefully. So try to understand. What is the classic BADI here? What is the classic BADI name? Customer underscore add underscore data. Okay. So we are doing the implementation 1. We are doing implementation 1. What is the BADI implementation name I proposed? Yes, ZIMPL1 or what is that? ZBADI IMPL1 I proposed. Okay. So observe this carefully. When I try to go to interface tab, good. You can see here this implementation is trying to implement which BADI? Customer add data. This BADI has got one interface now. Already we have seen that in SC18. What is that? If underscore ex underscore the so and so name. And based on your implementation name, SAP has provided one implementation class. So again, this is slightly related to object oriented. How do we implement the interfaces? Inside a class, the class whichever implements the interface is called as what? Implementation class. The class whichever implements the interface is called as implementation class. So what is the name itself? It has proposed for the implementation class ZCL underscore IM underscore BADI IMPL1 it seems. Let me document here. So the BADI implementation class it has proposed is what? ZCL underscore IM underscore BADI IMPL1. Done. What is the method we have decided to implement? Check all data, right? So double click on this particular method. It takes the control to the class builder, right? BADI implementation was changed. You want to save? Yes. I'll save it in what? Local object. Yeah, I got some information. The implementation will be migrated. See the long text for instructions. When I continue, when I say help here, what is saying? A BADI was migrated. All existing implementation must now be migrated as well. The new BADI, see the procedure, the new BADI is now part of what? Enhancement spot. While the new BADI implementation is part of what? Enhancement implementation. What I told? From 6.0, BADI definitions are stored inside what? Enhancement spot, and BADI implementations are stored inside what? Enhancement implementation. So what is saying here? The new BADI is now part of what? Enhancement spot, while the new BADI implementation is part of an enhancement implementation. In the subsequent dialog box, you either have to create a new enhancement implementation or select an existing one. Okay, in the subsequent dialog box, you either have to create a new enhancement implementation or select an existing one. Caution: only select the enhancement implementation that you are allowed to process. For example, a customer BADI implementation should never be migrated into an SAP enhancement implementation. If you do not find any suitable enhancement implementation, create a new one using the create button. Generally, people will not have the patience to read all these things. Blindly, they'll remember the navigations and they'll do it. Why they are doing, they'll not understand, but they'll do it. Understood? So we should be different from others. Okay, so try to understand what he is saying is the new body is part of what now we have seen just now. It is embedded inside what enhancement spot. So what it is saying here, since it is part of enhancement spot, it is asking us to embed your enhancement, so to embed your BADI implementation inside a enhancement implementation. Okay, what is this document is saying is, since it is part of enhancement spot now, you cannot create the BADI implementations directly. It seems that you have to embed inside what enhancement implementation. In the subsequent dialog box, we have to select an existing enhancement implementation or you create a new enhancement implementation. That is the story. Okay, done. So what I'll do now, what is the method, what is the information I got? Implementation will be migrated, continue. When I continue, good, you can see here, see the title here, select or create enhancement implementation. Select or create enhancement implementation. So already there are some enhancement implementations given by SAP. What SAP is clearly said in the previous documentation we have seen, don't select SAP enhancement implementation. If you don't find your suitable enhancement, you go for creating a new one. So all these are might be existing enhancement implementations, which I may not understand, I will not understand also, need not understand. So leave it. Okay. What you have to do here, we have to check whether our existing enhancement implementation is available. Obviously, existing enhancement implementation means which will start with what Z. I might have created this in the previous batches. I am not interested in this also. Let me go for creating a new enhancement implementation. So what I'll do here, somewhere there is a button here on the right hand side in the dialog box, create enhancement implementation. Earlier I proposed what? BADI implementation name. Don't get confused. BADI implementation is different. Enhancement implementation is different. So I'll select, click on what? Create enhancement implementation. Done. It is asking to provide the enhancement implementation name. I'll give enhancement implementation name as ZENHIMPL1. ZENHIMPL1. Short text. I'll give some short text here. Enhancement implementation one, some description. There is something called as composite enhancement implementation, which is not relevant, leave it. So just give the enhancement implementation name, click on what? Continue. When I continue, it is asking to save your enhancement implementation also is a separate object. It needs to be transported separately. So I'll just save it in what? Local object. Done. So somewhere in this list, your created enhancement implementation will appear. Where is that? ZENHIMPL1. Okay, continue. Select your just now created enhancement implementation. Click on continue button. Good. Okay, so you can see here. What is the method it is shown here? Check add-on active. Actually, what is the method we are trying to implement? Check all data. We double clicked on that only now, but it has opened some other method. So this will happen sometimes. It is a bug in the tool itself. It is an issue in the tool itself. We don't have any control on that. So, but I need to implement which method? Check all data. So I need to go back and double click once again. Okay. I'll just go back. Yeah. What is the method? Check all data. Na? Actually, I double clicked on check all data. It has opened me some other method like what? Check add-on active. Okay. It's the last method, I think. It is the last method. Okay, so I need to double click which method? check all data. So I'll double click on check all data. Right. So this is your, if I leave it like this is called as a null implementation. Opening the method and closing the method is what? Null implementation. So here actually I should make use of which parameter? S underscore kn1, but I will not use it. I'll use it tomorrow. As of now, I'll provide the dummy implementation to check whether it is getting triggered or not. So I'll just say first implementation for what? Check all data. I'm just giving some information message. Save it, check for the syntax error, activate your implementation. Done. Go back. Better we activate the implementation class also. Double click on the implementation class and activate. So this is the class. This is the implementation class which is actually implementing which interface? This interface. And this interface has got many methods. We implemented only one method. What about the other method? SAP will provide the null implementation. If you take the object-oriented principle in C++, Java, .NET, and ABAP, if a class implements any interface, the class must provide implementation for all the methods, at least a null implementation. Open the method and close the method. I implemented only one method. I need not bother about other methods. For other methods, SAP will provide the null implementation. That is the reason you have to activate your implementation class. I've activated. Done. Go back. Okay, activate your BADI implementation also. Done. BADI implementation has already been deactivated. Sorry, let me activate. Yeah, BADI implementation has been activated. Done. So it is active. So what I have done so far, this is my BADI implementation class. I created one enhancement implementation. Enhancement implementation. What is the name I gave? Yes, ZENHIMPL1. And what is the method I implemented in this? Yes, check all data. Only one method I implemented, check all data. This BADI is a multiple use BADI, na? Understood? It is a multiple use BADI. Okay, so I can provide any number of implementations. Let me provide one more implementation, implementation 2. Okay, so what I'll do here, since it is a multiple use BADI, I want to provide one more implementation. So same navigations, I'll go to SC18, sorry, SC19, SC19. Now here there are two things. What is the agenda now? I want to provide one more BADI implementation. You decide whether that second BADI implementation you want in a separate enhancement implementation or whether you want in the existing enhancement implementation. What is the definition I gave initially? Enhancement implementation is a container of what? One or more BADI implementations. One enhancement implementation can contain n number of BADI implementations. So you decide whether you want the existing enhancement implementation or new one. So what I'll do here, let me go for create implementation only. Let's see what happens. I'll choose classic BADI only. What is the BADI? Customer data. I'll click on create implementation. It is asking what? Implementation name. Let me give the implementation name as ZBADI IMPL2. BADI implementation names should be different because it is a fresh implementation. The BADI implementation names should be different. What is the implementation name I gave? ZBADI IMPL2. Continue. Yeah, good. Okay, I'll just give the description here. Second implementation. Done. Right? If I go to interface tab, what is the method I am interested to implement? Check all data. I'll double click on this. I'll save it in the local objects. It is asking to select or create the enhancement implementation. So already one enhancement implementation is there. Now let me choose the same enhancement implementation. What is that? ZENHIMPL1. ZENHIMPL1. I'll say continue. Done. Again, it has opened this method. Y means no answer. It is a bug in the tool. I'll go back. What is the method? Double click, check all data. Yeah, let me provide the second implementation. Message what? Second implementation for what? Check all data, type what? I. Save it, check for the syntax, activate this. Go back, better activate the implementation class. Double click on the implementation class, activate this. Yes, it is activated. Go back, activate your BADI implementation also. My BADI implementation has been activated. So we have two BADI implementations now. What is the implementation name here? ZBADI ZBADI IMPL2. What is the implementation class it has proposed? ZBADI. Right. So what is that BADI implementation name? ZBADI IMPL. 1 second, please. Yeah. So BADI IMPL2. What is the implementation class it has proposed? ZCL underscore IM underscore BADI IMPL2. I have chosen the same enhancement implementation. Done. Let me provide third implementation. Implementation 3. Okay. So try to understand. I'll provide one more implementation. So what is the navigation I followed earlier? I came to SC19. Directly we are implementing this. Even if I'm trying to implement the classic BADI, it is asking me to embed that implementation inside what? Enhancement implementation. Done. Now what I'll do is I'll provide one more implementation. Try to understand. Customer or data, create implementation. What is that implementation name? It should be fresh implementation. I'll give it as Z BADI IMPL3. You give any name, but start with Z or Y. Z BADI IMPL3. Provide the description. Third implementation. I'll go to interface. It has proposed the implementation class. On top of this BADI implementation, it will propose the implementation class. What is the method you want to implement? Check all data. Let me double click on check all data. Okay, will be migrated. Again, you decide whether you want in the same enhancement implementation or in a separate enhancement implementation. I'll go for a new enhancement implementation. Create enhancement implementation. I'll give the name of the enhancement implementation name as ZINHIMPL2. IMPL2. I'll give the description as second enhancement implementation. Right? I'll click on what? Continue. Let us save it in the local objects. Right. So what is that enhancement implementation I have to choose? ZENHIMPL2. I'll click on what? Continue. Done. Again, it has opened check add-on active. Let me go back. I'll double click on check all data. Let me save it. So I'll say message. What? Third implementation for check all data. Third implementation for check all data. Type what? Information message. Check it. Activate this. Better activate the implementation class also. Yes, it is activated. Activate your BADI implementation. Yes, it is activated. Let me document here. What is the BADI implementation? ZBADI IMPL3. BADI implementation class is ZCL underscore so and so. Enhancement implementation is different. What is that? IMPL2. So what is the meaning here? For my BADI, there are three BADI implementations which are spread across what? Which are spread across what? Two enhancement implementations. For our BADI, there are three BADI implementations which are spread across what? Which are spread across what? Two enhancement implementations. 1 second, just hold on, please. Just hold on, please. Just hold on.
This conference will now be recorded.
Right. So we have how many implementations? Three active BAD implementations spread across what? Two enhancement implementations. Let me provide one more implementation. So we are trying to understand the overall concept here. So be patient. So what is my agenda now? I want to provide fourth BAD implementation. So I'll go to SC19. So far, what we have done, how you are providing implementation in the create implementation block. I have directly selected, I am able to select classic BADI because it was available in the old versions also. By in SC18, we clearly understood that it got migrated to enhancements, but that's why I'm able to implement it directly. Even if you are able to implement it directly, even if you are able to implement it directly, it was asking to store that particular BADI implementation inside what? Enhancement implementation. Okay, we have seen that process. Now what we have, what I'll do is, we understood initially this BADI, classic BADI, migrated to what? Migrated to what? Enhancement spot. What was enhancement spot name? Same na? Customer underscore add underscore data. Now see the way I implement. What I'll do here, in the SC19, in the create implementation block, I'll choose the radio button what? New BADI. Let's see allow or not. New BADI. Enhancement spot it is asking. What is the enhancement spot? Customer underscore add underscore. This is not BADI name. This is enhancement spot. In this case, the BADI name and the enhancement spot name were same. So I'll choose this, click on what? Create implementation. It is asking what? Observe this case. It is asking what? First it is asking what? Enhancement implementation. So try to focus here. Earlier, when I choose classic BADI, when I get a BADI name, when I click on create implementation, it was asking for what? BADI implementation name. And then it is asking us to select or create the enhancement implementation. Here, what we are trying to do, directly we are trying to create the, we are trying to implement, directly we are trying to implement the enhancement spot. So when I click on create implementation, when I click on create implementation, it is directly asking what? Enhancement implementation. I will give the enhancement implementation name as either IMPL2 or IMPL3, whatever you want, you give it, or one, whatever it is. I'll go for what? IMPL2. Already this IMPL2 has got one bad implementation. So I'll give the short text. Acha, acha. It is already there, na? I don't think it will allow me to create. Let me check. I'll give the description as enhancement implementation. I don't think it will allow me to create because already this is there. Okay, I'll try to create. Good. What is saying here? Enhancement already existing. Am I clear? So if I follow these navigations, I am forced to create a new enhancement implementation. What is that I have done? In the create implementation block, I directly get the enhancement spot. When I try to implement that, it is directly asking what? Enhancement implementation name. I have to give a new enhancement implementation. I'll give it as ENH-IMPL3. Continue. Done. This is my enhancement implementation. Done. So this enhancement implementation is implementing which enhancement spot? Customer underscore add underscore data. That enhancement spot has got one BADI definition. So if I save it, observe here, good. Observe here, it is asking this enhancement implementation. What is that? ENH-IMPL3. See the title. ENH-IMPL3 is implementing which enhancement spot? Customer underscore add underscore data. That enhancement spot has got one BADI definition. It is asking me to select BADI definition. I'll just choose what? The only BADI definition, which is customer add data. Here I have to propose the implementation name. Let me give the implementation name as ZBADI IMPL what? 4. I'll give the implementation. Acha. In the earlier navigation, SAP itself has proposed the implementation class name with what naming convention? CL underscore IM. So with that knowledge, I'll also follow the same naming convention. CL underscore IM underscore the implementation name IMPL 4. Am I clear? So continue. Local object. This is my implementation class. Done. Okay. So you see the environment here. Here the look and feel is slightly different. This is my enhancement implementation, which has got the BADI implementation. This is the implementing class. If we double click in this class, it is implementing the above interface. Which method you want to implement? Check all data. If I double click on this, okay, do you want to create implementation? Yes. Right. It has opened check all data. Let me implement this. What is this message? What is that? Fourth implementation for what? Check all data. Type what? I. Save it. Check for the syntax error. Activate this. Yes, it is activated. Better we activate the implementation class also. I'll double click on the implementation class. Activate the implementation class. Yes, it is activated. Go back. Activate your enhancement implementation also. Yes, it is activated. So what is the meaning? Our BADI has got 4 BADI implementations spread across 3 enhancement implementations. This is my implementation 4. Right? BADI implementation name is what? 4. What is the implementation class? CL underscore IMPL 4. In enhancement implementation is what? ZENH 3. And in all the implementations, I implemented the same method what? Check all data. So we are done with the implementation. If you want to modify the existing enhancement, if you want to modify the existing implementations, you can go to SC19. I can choose the classic BADI. I can directly provide the BADI implementation name here. If you select this here you have to provide the enhancement implementation name. Suppose if I choose ENH IMPL1, this enhancement implementation 1 has got 2 BADI implementations. Na? So if I open it in change mode, so here it will open me what? 2 BADI implementations, BADI IMPL1 and BADI IMPL2. You decide which one you want to modify. Similarly, if I take ENH IMPL2, it has got only one BADI implementation. If I display, only one BADI implementation. Similarly, ENH IMPL3 has got one BADI implementation. ENH IMPL3 also contains what? Only one BADI implementation. This one. Okay, done. So overall, our BADI contains what? 4 implementations spread across 3 enhancement implementations. So if you go to SC18, observe this carefully. If you go to SC18, what is the enhancement spot? Customer data only. If I display, observe this carefully. For this particular what? Enhancement spot, it has got one BADI definition. This BADI definition has got how many implementations? 4 implementations. If I expand this, if I double click on implementation, see here, see at the bottom, it is showing you what? This one, IMPL1, IMPL2, IMPL3, IMPL4. These 4, they are available inside how many enhancement implementations? Yes, 3 enhancement implementation. ENH IMPL1 has got 2. ENH IMPL2 has got one bad implementation. ENH IMPL3 has got another bad. All are what? Active. Yellow color indicates what here? Implementation will be called. So let me test my transaction code. How do you test? XD01. I am interested at what stage that method is called. I am interested to check at what stage the BADI is triggered. So I'll go to XD01. Yeah, it is not yet triggered. How can you say it is not triggered? Because I didn't got any message from that method. So I'll choose R3 to CRM. I'll go inside. Not yet triggered. I'll give some this thing. I'll give some name. I'll give the country. Done. Okay. I'm not giving any industry key, nothing. I'll click on save. Now the BADI might get triggered. Now the BADI might get triggered. In that BADI, SAP will be calling that method check all data. Who will call that method? SAP will call. For that method check all data, do we have any active implementations? Yes, there are 4 active implementations spread across 3 enhancement implementation. So when I save it, yeah, you can see, observe this carefully. First implementation for check all data, second implementation for check all data, third implementation for check all data, fourth implementation for check all data. All the implementations are getting executed one after the other. Since they are only information message, it is allowing me to create the customer. Suppose I'll go back to SC18. This is the BADI enhancement spot. If I display this enhancement spot has got one BADI definition. This BADI definition has got 4 implementations. IMPL1, IMPL2, IMPL3, IMPL4. I want to switch off IMPL2. I'll double click on this IMPL2. Can I deactivate anywhere? This is my IMPL2. I'll open this in change mode. Right, for this IMPL2, there is a checkbox here, implementation is active. I'm unable to deselect. Yeah, this is the thing. Okay, I'm unable to control here. I'm unable to control here. I'll do one thing. I'll go to SC19. What is the enhancement implementation you want to switch off? Z BADI IMPL2. Z BADI IMPL2 I want to switch off. I'll try to change it. Okay, this is my implementation. Active implementation may not be changed, so I'll deactivate here. I'll click on deactivate. Good, it is inactive. BADI implementation has been deactivated. I'll just save it. That's all. Save it and come back. So implementation is available, but it is inactive. If you go to SC18, if you go and check the implementations for this particular BADI definitions, you have 4 implementations, but you can see the second one IMPL2, it is in what? Implementation is not called, it is switched off. It is switched off. I'll run the T code XD01, right? Sold to party R3 to CRM. Okay, I'll give some title. Done. I'll give some text here. Right, I'll use the country as India. Done. I'll save it. First implementation, what happened? Third implementation and what? Fourth implementation. The second one is not getting called because it is inactive. So what is the point we understood for today is multiple use means it can have any number of active implementations. All the implementations will be executed one after the other, and those bad implementations can be part of one enhancement implementation, or it can be part of n number of enhancement implementation. If it is part of n number of enhancement implementation, make sure that all the enhancement implementations are transported. Yeah, I'm done for today's session. Any queries, please ask.
Hi, Sridhar, Gribabu here.
Yeah, Giri.
So to execute multiple implementation, is there a sequence you can set for that, or the system can be decided?
That answer you'll get it after 4-5 days, Giri, by using filters. Filters are used for controlling the execution of active implementations. So answer for your query is filters. So when we discuss filters, we'll see how to control that sequence. Actually, sequence we cannot control, but what I can control is, even if it is active, based on certain conditions, I can make it suppress.
Execute or non-execute?
Yes, whether to execute or not execute based on condition. Even if it is active also, it will be bypassed. That is implemented through filters. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, Ashish.
Can we attempt screen exit and menu exit using BADIs?
Yes, everything whatever you are able to do using customer exits can be done through BADIs also. In the next 4-5 days, we'll take an example of screen enhancements using BADIs.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other queries? Yesterday's recording I have not shared. There is a problem in conversion. I'll share it today. Yesterday's and today's recording I'll share. Spend time on the system. Listen to the recording first, then practice. And don't try to remember the navigations. If you remember the navigations, you'll not understand the concept. So navigations are least important. Okay. Chalo, so I'm done for today's session. We'll continue tomorrow.
Thanks, Sridhar.
Thank you, everyone.